Let's talk about petroleum a little bit, the coming storm. My grandfather rode a camel, my father rode a camel, I drive a Mercedes, my son drives a Land Rover, his son will drive a Land Rover, but his son will ride a camel. It is a funny quote, except that when you realize it was said by Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum of Dubai on the coming Middle East crisis in 1990, 17 years ago, you sort of go, it's funny, but not funny, ha ha. That was sort of funny. No. All right, and that's why if you read like National Geographic, which I love, and you look at stuff about Dubai, they've got these crazy hotels and condos and whatever. You know, in Dubai, you can go into, I think it's a mall, and ski indoors on a man-made mountain. It's not sustainable, but it's kind of cool on another level. But it's the middle of the, because basically what he said is he gathered everybody together and he said, boys, we have a problem. It's going to run out and we need to do something for the future. So they basically said, we're going to make ourselves an economic powerhouse. We're going to make ourselves a, they're starting like movie making there and you name it. So he said, we've got to find some other way to sustain ourselves because there's not enough of this left around. So let's talk about fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, generally speaking, you're talking about petroleum, you're talking about natural gas, you're talking about coal, you're talking about organic matter that over millions and millions and millions and millions of years turned into one of these three things. To give you an idea of, in the United States, what we are presently using, 49% of our power comes from coal, then you jump down to natural gas, which is 20%, nuclear, which is 19%, then your petroleum, you got 2%, hydroelectric is 7%, and renewable energy is 2%. So we've got this sort of 9% hydro renewable energy, and I'll put those two together as renewable right now. It takes up 9%. What we need to do is bring it all the way around here. Now, nuclear has its pluses and its minuses. There's obviously the problem with the radioactive material left over. Ironically enough, anybody ever heard of Yucca Mountain? Okay, that's where they're going to store all the radioactive material. They've been talking about how do they have power supplies for all the vents, all the fans that vent all this stuff out, because they have to have it there in case there's a war and a famine and a, you name it, any of the plagues will do. And they have to get the heat that's stored up out there. And they're thinking about putting solar panels up to run the fans to get the heat away from the nuclear material that made all the power to begin with, which... Anyway, that makes sense to me. So what we need to do is we need to take the 9%, we need to expand it all the way around. That's what we need to work towards, okay? Now, when we think of petroleum, and that's what I'm going to talk about mostly here, the reason being because coal, most people that you talk to, forget about the environment and forget about everybody else. We probably have 250 years worth of coal left. There's a lot of coal in this country. Natural gas, it's sort of like 100, 150 years, most people say. Petroleum is a little bit of a different story. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Petroleum, 2/3 of the petroleum in the United States is used for transportation. It's used for getting your butt from point A to point B or getting your stuff from point A to point B. So the other thing, though, that petroleum is used with, does anybody know what else the major thing everybody in this room is wearing it? Plastics, synthetics, yes. This is actually a picture from National Geographic. This is a family of 5 from Stowe, Ohio. And what they did was they took everything in their house that had petroleum in it and put it on the front lawn. So when you think of petroleum being gone, and we'll talk about whether it's going to be gone or not in a minute, don't only think about my car, because you can like roll or pogo stick or hop or whatever you want to do, but think about everything there being gone. It's pretty massive. And I mean, anybody who has ever had the bad experience of being in the hospital, and this occurred to me, I was looking down at the IV going in my arm and I went, wow, that would be really nasty if it was glass and not plastic. So there are certain things, and I did it again, there are certain things that it's really good for, and I think it can be used for a lot of things other than transportation. You can obviously see I'm sort of going down a road here per se. But let's talk about oil for a second. By the way, I will say that I made all these slides myself on the computer and I'm fairly proud of them, even though they're bad, so please don't wince because they're bad. Basically, just to put it in very simple terms, let's say that this circle right here represents all of the oil, all of the oil in the planet, okay? And over 150 million years, as dinosaurs walked around and plants fell and you name it, and pressure and whatever, 150 million years, it filled up all of the petroleum and all of the planet and all of the world, okay? Like I said earlier, I'm a very simple person, so I make these very simple so I can understand that, so hopefully I can explain it. It obviously doesn't work like this. And 150 million years, I could be off by a couple million years, but does it really make a difference? No. Okay. So 150 million years to make it all. Okay. About 150 years ago, again, I may be off by a couple years, we had the Industrial Revolution. We started having factories. We started all sorts of stuff. They needed to run this. They said, hey, there's this goop in the ground. Let's use it. And we'll run things. And they started using petroleum more and more. And over that time, we have used half of it. 150 million years to make it, 150 years to use half of it. What's going to happen in 150 years? It's going to be gone. But actually, the good news is it's not going to be gone. But the bad news is coming in a second.